My daughter banned me from her wedding because her millionaire in-laws called me a stain on their perfect event. But when I posted the truth on Facebook, their PR agency lost 40% of their clients and they never saw coming. What happened next? I'm 50 years old. I work as a real estate agent. And what happened a few months ago with my daughter's wedding still has me processing a ton of contradictory emotions. You know, the kind that make you question absolutely everything. I guess I should start at the beginning. When my husband died like 16 years ago, and I was left alone raising Olivia, who was 10 years old at the time. I don't remember much about the first months after his death. Honestly, they were kind of blurred by the grief and the shock and the whole thing of having to completely reinvent myself. Because suddenly, I was a single mother with a mortgage and a little girl who depended 100% on me. I got into real estate because the hours were flexible, and I could be present for Olivia, take her to her school activities, help her with homework, and that kind of stuff that was important to me because she had already lost her father. And I wasn't going to let her also lose her mother by working all the time. I didn't make a fortune. I mean, we lived comfortably, but it's not like we were swimming in money. You know what I mean? We had a modest house in a normal neighborhood. Olivia went to good public schools. We took vacations when we could, but they weren't luxurious trips to Europe or anything like that. And basically, I worked hard so she wouldn't lack anything essential. But I also couldn't give her all the luxuries that some of her friends had. Olivia grew up being an incredible girl, like one of those daughters any mother would want to have. She got good grades without me having to be on top of her. She was responsible, kind, and we had a super close relationship because it was literally just the two of us against the world for all those years. When she went to college, I felt so proud. She had gotten a partial scholarship and I covered the rest with savings and some loans. But we made it happen together. In college, she met William, her boyfriend, and at first everything seemed normal. She'd come home talking about him. He seemed like a decent guy. He was studying business administration or something like that, and I was happy that she had found someone who treated her well. What I didn't know at that time, and that Olivia also didn't tell me until much later, was that William came from an extremely wealthy family. I mean, not normal rich, but rich like those who have big companies and houses in several states and that kind of thing. His parents had a super successful public relations agency. They worked with important clients and basically lived in a completely different world from ours. The first time I met William's parents was at a dinner like 2 years ago, and honestly, it was uncomfortable from the first second. You could feel the tension in the air, and how they looked me up and down evaluating me as if I were a product in a store that didn't meet their quality standards. William's mother, I don't remember exactly what her name was because Olivia always referred to her as William's mom, and I never had much interaction with her, would ask me questions that sounded innocent but were clearly designed to find out how much money I had and what kind of life I led. Things like, and what neighborhood do you live in exactly? Is your house big? Do you travel a lot? And I answered honestly because I had nothing to hide. But I could see on their faces that my answers weren't what they wanted to hear. William's father was the same, always talking about his important contacts and his famous clients and how successful his firm was, as if he needed to establish from the beginning that they were on a completely different level than mine. After that dinner, Olivia told me it had gone well, but I knew she was lying to make me feel better because the reality is that it hadn't gone well at all. They had clearly judged me and found me insufficient according to their ridiculous standards. Months went by and Olivia and William kept dating. They graduated from college. William got a job at his parents' company because obviously that's what happens when you have family connections. And Olivia started working in marketing for a medium-sized company. Like a year ago, William proposed to her and Olivia was super happy. She called me crying with excitement and I cried too because my baby was getting married and it was a huge moment in her life. They started planning the wedding, and I naturally assumed I was going to be involved in the process. You know, helping choose the dress, giving opinions on the menu, all those typical mother of the bride things. But from the beginning, I noticed that William's parents were taking control of absolutely everything. They had hired a super expensive wedding planner, they had booked a super exclusive venue, and basically they were paying for the entire wedding, which in theory should have been a good thing because I didn't have the money to pay for a wedding like that. But the way they were doing it was like they were saying, look, we pay so we decide and you, Susan, don't have a voice or vote in any of this. Olivia was trapped in the middle. I could see it in her eyes every time we talked about the wedding. There was a tension there that hadn't been there before, and I would ask her if everything was okay, and she always said yes, but I knew she was lying. Things got really weird like 3 months before the wedding. Olivia started avoiding my calls, or she'd answer them but keep the conversation super short. And when I asked her about wedding details, she'd give me vague answers and change the subject quickly. I thought, well, maybe she's stressed with all the preparations. It's normal for brides to get a little intense before the wedding. So I didn't give it much importance at that moment. But then, like 2.5 months ago, Olivia showed up at my house on a Sunday afternoon without warning. And when I opened the door and saw her face, I immediately knew something was very wrong. Her eyes were red, like she had been crying. She didn't look at me directly when she came in, and she sat on the couch with her hands between her legs like a little girl who knows she's about to tell something terrible. I asked her what was wrong, and she stayed quiet for what seemed like an eternity. And finally she said, "Mom, there's something I have to tell you." And I was already feeling that knot in my stomach that you get when you know what's coming is going to hurt. She told me, "William's parents don't want you to come to the wedding." And I just sat there processing those words because, honestly, they didn't make sense in my head. Like, what do you mean they don't want me to go? I'm the mother of the bride. She's my only daughter. Obviously, I'm going to go to her wedding. I asked her what the hell she was saying, and she started crying. She explained that William's parents had been pressuring her for weeks, telling her that I didn't fit in with the image they wanted to project at the wedding, that their guests were important and upper-class people, and that my presence was going to be like a stain on their perfect event. Those were literally the words they used, according to Olivia. A stain. I couldn't believe it. I mean, literally, my brain couldn't process that this was happening. I asked Olivia, "And what did you say when they told you that?" And she admitted between sobs that at first she had fought with them. She had defended my right to be there, but that William had eventually convinced her that it would be better for everyone if I simply didn't go, that this way we would avoid conflicts and the wedding could be perfect. I asked her if William had really said that, and she nodded, and I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach, because my daughter, my only daughter who I had raised alone for 16 years, to whom I had given everything I had, was sitting there telling me that she had agreed to exclude me from her wedding because I wasn't good enough for her fiancé's family. I told her, "Olivia, do you realize what you're asking me?" And she said, "Mom, please understand, it's just one day. We can do something special, just you and me, afterwards. But I need this to work with William's family because I'm going to spend the rest of my life with them." And that's when something broke inside me. You know, that moment where you realize that the person you trusted most in the world is choosing other people over you. I told her to leave my house and she tried to stay to keep talking, but I didn't want to hear anything more. I needed her to leave before I said things I was going to regret. That night I didn't sleep at all. I stayed awake in bed, turning everything over, feeling hurt and betrayed and furious and sad all at the same time. At some point in the early morning, like 3 or 4 in the morning, I decided I wasn't going to stay quiet and let this elitist family treat me like I was trash. I grabbed my phone and wrote a long Facebook post telling exactly what had happened. I didn't omit any details. I explained how I had raised Olivia alone after her father died, how I had worked hard to give her a good life, how I had met William's parents and how they had judged me from the first moment, and how now they had forbidden me from attending my own daughter's wedding because I didn't meet their social class standards. And what I did next was probably the most savage thing I've ever done. I tagged William's parents in the post. I searched for their Facebook profiles and tagged them directly, so all their contacts could see exactly what kind of people they were. I also tagged the family's public relations agency, because if they were going to humiliate me for not being sophisticated enough for them, then the world needed to know what kind of values the people who supposedly helped others maintain a good public image had. I published the post and went to sleep, honestly not expecting much more to happen beyond some close friends reading it and giving me their support. I woke up like 5 hours later with my phone exploding with notifications. I had literally hundreds of messages, comments, and shares of the post. The thing had gone viral in a way I never imagined. People I didn't know were sharing my story. There were comments from people expressing their support and their outrage at how I had been treated. And most importantly, many of William's family's professional contacts were seeing the post and leaving negative comments about the public relations agency. Some were commenting things like, "How hypocritical is this family? They preach inclusion and diversity for their clients, but discriminate against a mother for her social class." And others were saying, "I can't believe we've worked with people like this. We're definitely going to reconsider our professional relationship with them." My phone started ringing like crazy. I had missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize, messages from Olivia begging me to talk, but I wasn't ready to answer anything yet. Then, like 2 hours after waking up, I got a call from William's father. And this time, I did answer because I wanted to hear what the hell he had to say. The conversation was basically him begging me to delete the post. His voice sounded desperate and even a little scared. He was telling me, "Susan, please, this is ruining our reputation. We're losing clients. People are canceling us. I need you to delete that post right now." I told him. "Oh, now I'm important enough for you guys, huh? When you wanted to humiliate me, I didn't matter. But now that your precious reputation is at stake, suddenly you need my help." He offered me money. He literally told me, "I'll pay you whatever you want if you delete that post." And I laughed in his face. I told him there was no amount of money that would make me shut up after how they had treated me. He kept calling me that day, like 5 or 6 times, and eventually I blocked his number because I had nothing more to say to him. I had said to what I needed to say in that post, and I wasn't going to retract anything. Olivia called me that same afternoon. She was crying so hard I could barely understand what she was saying. She was begging me to delete the post. She was saying, "Mom, please. This is destroying everything. The wedding is in chaos. William is fighting with his parents. His whole family is furious. Please do it for me." And I told her, "Olivia, I'm not the one who destroyed anything. They did this when they decided I wasn't good enough to be at your wedding. I just exposed the truth. And if the truth is ruining their lives, then maybe they should reflect on the kind of people they are." She kept begging and crying, but I stood firm. I told her I loved her, but I wasn't going to delete the post, and I hung up. The following days were absolute madness. The post had reached like 50,000 shares or something like that. People from all over the country were commenting. There were articles on local blogs about the story, and the craziest thing was that former employees of the public relations agency started coming forward, sharing their own stories about how William's family had mistreated or discriminated against them when they worked there. A woman wrote a long comment telling how they had fired her when she got pregnant, because according to them, a pregnant woman didn't project the professional image they wanted. Another former employee told how they had denied him a raise because he came from a poor neighborhood, and they felt that reflected badly on the company. They were horrible stories that confirmed exactly the kind of people they were. William tried to call me too, like a week after I posted, and when I answered, he spoke to me in that tone of a guy who's trying to be reasonable and adult. He told me, "Susan, I understand you're angry and you're right to be, but this has gotten out of control. Olivia is devastated. My parents are receiving threats. The wedding had to be postponed indefinitely. Do you really want this to continue like this?" And I told him, "William, you could have avoided all of this if you had defended your future mother-in-law when your parents decided I wasn't good enough. But you chose the easy path, and now everyone is facing the consequences of that decision." He tried to convince me for like half an hour, using emotional arguments about how much he loved Olivia and how this was destroying her. And yes, it hurt me to know my daughter was suffering. But at the same time, I felt this was something that needed to happen. She needed to see the kind of family she was marrying into and the decisions she was going to have to make in the future if she stayed with William. In the end, I told him I wasn't going to delete the post, and that if Olivia was devastated, then maybe she should think about why her mother had been forced to take such drastic measures to get someone to listen to her. Like 3 weeks went by without hearing anything from Olivia. My heart was broken, because we had never gone that long without talking to each other since she was a rebellious teenager who got mad at me for not letting her stay out late. But I stood firm in my decision because I felt that giving in now would be like validating all the mistreatment I had received. The post was still active on my Facebook. It had already reached ridiculous numbers of shares and comments. It had basically become a viral case about classism and discrimination, and although a small part of me wondered if I had gone too far, most of me felt that I had finally done something to defend myself after years of quietly accepting being treated as less. Then one afternoon, like a month after all this, I heard a knock on my door, and when I opened it, there were Olivia and William. Both of them looked tired and like thinner, and Olivia had swollen eyes like she had been crying recently. I stood there not knowing what to say, and finally Olivia said, "Mom, we got married. We went to a chapel in Las Vegas 3 days ago, and got married just the two of us without telling anyone." And I don't know what expression my face must have had, but it must have been total shock because she quickly added, "I'm sorry. I know you wanted to be there, but after everything that happened, we decided the best thing was to just do it ourselves." I let them in, and we sat in the living room. That same couch where Olivia had told me 2 months ago that I was banned from her wedding, and this time it was she who spoke first. She told me, "Mom, You were right about everything. I was so blinded by wanting to fit in with William's family that I didn't see how horribly they were treating you. And when you published that post, my first instinct was to be angry at you. But then I started reading all the comments and all the stories from other people, and I realized that you were just defending yourself from people who had treated you terribly. William also spoke. He told me he was deeply sorry, that he had been a coward for not defending my right to be at the wedding, that he had allowed his parents to dictate something that should have been his and Olivia's decision, and that he completely understood if I could never forgive him. They told me that after the scandal of the post, William's life had become impossible. His parents were furious with him for not having been able to control the situation. The agency had lost several important clients, and when Olivia and William told them they had decided to get married anyway without a big wedding, William's father basically disowned him. I told him that if he married Olivia after all the damage I had caused, then he could forget about working in the family business and receiving any kind of financial support from them. And William, to his credit, told them that was fine, that he preferred to have a life with Olivia without their money than a life of luxury but without the person he loved. Olivia was crying as she told me all this. She was telling me, "Mom, forgive me for failing you, for not having fought harder for you from the beginning, for having let them make you feel you weren't good enough when you're the most important person in my life. You're the one who was there my whole life when no one else was." And I was crying at that point too, because seeing my daughter like this, finally seeing the reality of the situation, it was like a relief mixed with pain, because I never wanted things to get to this point. But at the same time, I knew they had needed to get here for her to see the truth. I told them I forgave them. Not immediately, because it would be a lie to say all those wounds healed in a single conversation, but I told them I wanted to work on rebuilding our relationship and that I understood they had been in an impossible position. William thanked me and promised me that from now on he would treat me the way the mother of his wife deserved to be treated, and I could see in his eyes that he meant it. There was something different about him, like this whole mess had removed that subtle arrogance he had before when I met him. It's been like 2 months since that conversation, and things are slowly improving. Olivia calls me almost every day. We've gone to lunch together several times, and it's weird, but I feel like our relationship is more honest now than before. Like that horrible event removed all the layers of fakeness, and now we can talk about real things without pretending everything is perfect. William and she are living in a small apartment they can afford with their own salaries, without help from his parents, and although it's not the life of luxury they probably would have had if William hadn't been disowned by his family, Olivia tells me they're happy and that it feels good to be building something for themselves. The post is still on my Facebook. I never deleted it, and probably never will, because it represents a moment when I finally stood up for myself after being stepped on, and although it caused huge chaos and probably destroyed a family's reputation, I don't regret having published it. William's parents' public relations agency had to hire their own crisis firm to handle the scandal, and according to Olivia, they've lost like 40% of their clients, which is a huge consequence. But honestly, I feel it's what they deserved for treating people the way they treated them. The only thing that still hurts me is knowing I'm probably never going to have a relationship with William's parents. They obviously hate me and blame me for everything that happened, and although technically I didn't do anything more than tell the truth, I understand that from their perspective, I'm the villain who destroyed their perfect life. Olivia says maybe with time they can forgive, but I'm not waiting for that. And honestly, I'm not sure I want their forgiveness either. Not after how they treated me and what they were willing to do to their own daughter-in-law. Last week, Olivia showed me photos from her Las Vegas wedding. It was just the two of them in a small chapel. She was wearing a simple white dress she had bought at a department store, and William had a normal suit, nothing of the extravagance that had been planned for the original wedding. She asked me if it bothered me not having been there, and I told her the truth. That yes, it hurt me to have missed that moment, but that I understood why they had done it that way, and that what mattered was that she was happy, and that finally she was with someone who had chosen her over the approval of his parents. She told me that when they have money saved up, they want to have a small celebration just with the people who really matter, basically me and some close friends, and that's going to be the real celebration of their marriage, not the elaborate production her former in-laws had planned. I don't know if I did the right thing by posting that post. To this day, I ask myself that in quiet moments when I'm alone at home and think about everything that happened. Part of me feels that maybe I exaggerated, that maybe I could have handled the situation more privately, but another part of me, the part that was humiliated and excluded from the most important day in her daughter's life, Feels that finally someone had to stand up to that family and show them they can't treat people as inferior just because they have more money. It caused pain. Yes, it caused chaos and probably ruined reputations and relationships, but it also exposed a truth that needed to be seen, and at the end of the day, that has to count for something, right? Or at least that's what I tell myself when doubts start appearing in my head at 3 in the morning.